We move on now. We're going to be looking at cashless Lagos, which will lead to cashless Nigeria. What does that mean? In this country, we pay for everything in cash. Almost everything, that is. You want to go and buy a car for 8 million naira, you put a few Ghana Moscos in the back of your car, and off you go to go and buy your car. And that, strictly speaking, is absolutely ridiculous. You can get killed for that, and many people have gotten killed for things like that. So, Nigeria is now saying we should be able to pay for items we purchase, pay for things either with checks or through plastic, as is done everywhere else in the world. We have with us to look at this the Deputy Governor Operations of the Central Bank, Mr. Tunde Lemo.
Thank you.
We also have Mr. Victor Hammond, who is of the Bankers Warehouse.
Good morning, and thank you very much.
As well as Mr. Agada Apochi, who is MD CEO over at Value Card.
Thank you.
Let me begin with you, sir, since the policy came from the Central Bank of Nigeria. What really is to be achieved by this? And I ask this question because carrying cash around is so much a part of the Nigerian, because of the issue of trust, mainly. You give me a check, I'm going to hold the goods until the bank gives me value for your money, for that check, before I deliver the goods to you or I ask you to come back for your goods. How is all of that going to just disappear?
I think the same logic will still subsist under the cashless scenario, in the sense that the trust elements will still be there. Recall that
the lack of trust element.
Yes, the lack of trust element will still be there, in the sense that the electronic channel permits you also to convince yourself that you have been paid before you part with the money. The only difference now, you part with the goods, the only difference now is that it goes through the electronic channel and not the physical exchange of cash. And you did ask me, what are the benefits? I mean, why did we come up with this?
Yeah.
Of course, I think in your introduction, you actually alluded to that. First and foremost, in Nigeria, particularly given the security challenges that we have today, is actually to help to secure individuals, in the sense that if you no longer carry heavy amounts of cash, you are no longer vulnerable to physical attack. But beyond that, it's also going to make our economy a lot more efficient. Today, as we speak, over 90% of our commercial transactions are still done in cash. And if we migrate a good percentage of that, say 60–70%, we will be a lot more efficient in the way we conduct business, and that can add up to 2–3% to our GDP. And besides that, it's also going to assist even the merchant to ensure that all of the proceeds is accounted for. You know, money is very fungible. When you sit down and then the shop owner or the person collecting cash on your behalf does that, you're not sure that some of it will not be paid for. But when it goes through the electronic channel, it's more convenient, and as the transaction is being done, it goes straight into your account. So we can go on and on and on. It brings efficiency, it's a lot more convenient, it's safer. And besides that, Nigeria had been flagged before as a non-compliant country because it's a veritable avenue for money laundering and all other, what we call black economy, to thrive. And so we're just benchmarking to the international best practice by ensuring that the bulk of our transactions is done electronically, so we can be respected as a safe haven even by the international standard.
It will be effectively wired to the international community. But I mean, all of this picture, I still want to stay with you before we go to our other panelists. All of this picture you have painted is, convincing, and there are those who have said that as the CBN considered the other side of the coin, we talked about insecurity. Have you considered the notion that you might be substituting one insecurity with another insecurity by way of the internet and ICT system in Nigeria, which has not been well developed, and so people can gain access into your accounts and do all kinds of things that we've known has happened in recent times with internet banking. Then two, a country where the judicial system and the process is so slow that when there's financial crime, you don't get justice on time, and companies and individuals can afford to wait, where people sign dog checks and they don't really get that penalty or sanction, as it were. Does the CBN consider that other side?
Excellent. You're very right. The challenges are there for electronic banking or electronic form of commercial transaction. But first, let me tell you that the risk element is different. When you carry cash, you do not stand the risk of losing your money. You stand the risk of losing your life. But of course, if through electronic form there is some fraud, you at least your life is preserved. But we did appreciate that, and we have done a lot to ensure that we will deal with cybercrime. Recall several years ago when we introduced ATM. Of course, initially when we were still at the steep end of the learning curve, we had challenges regarding identity fraud and so on and so on. But we've been able to nip that in the bud. Today, we've been able to cut off 98% of what showed up as challenges in those areas. And today, before the introduction of electronic form of commercial transaction, we sat down and we have been able to look at all the possibilities, and we're dealing with them. As we speak, we have industry-wide fraud committee that sits on a monthly basis. Central Bank and all the operators will sit together, and we have experts who advise us on how to introduce firewalls and all form of security around e-payments. And besides that, about conflict resolution, we have two bills in the National Assembly now, the Ombudsman bill and then another bill on e-payment dispute. All of this is to ensure that dispute resolution is done pretty fast. Even today we told banks, you have to set up help desk. If there is a dispute within 48 hours, you have to respond to the customer. Within 1 week, you should resolve it. And Central Bank stands ready to ensure there is customer protection. As we speak, we have a division in Central Bank that looks at consumer protection. And all of what we intend to do is to make sure that all those information get to us. We refer to banks and get them to deal with those things as they come.
Okay, Mr. Hammond, can you just tell us